The courtroom fell dead silent as Judge Judy's eyes narrowed to deadly slits. Her legendary gaze locked on the blonde woman in the defendant's chair, who had just made the biggest mistake of her entire life. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and what happened in the next 60 seconds would not only shock the entire nation, but would also expose a hidden truth about entitled behavior that nobody saw coming. The 42-year-old suburban mom sitting across from America's most feared television judge had no idea that her next words would trigger the most savage judicial destruction ever caught on live television. And the secret reason why Judge Judy's response hit so hard would leave millions of Americans questioning everything they thought they knew about respect and authority. Jennifer Walsh had strutted into that Studio City courtroom with the kind of entitled confidence that comes from a lifetime of getting exactly what she wants, through sheer force of complaints and demands. This wasn't just any ordinary Karen. This was a woman who had perfected the art of intimidation through 20 years of successful battles against restaurant managers, retail workers, school administrators, and HOA board members. Her designer handbag clutched like a weapon, her perfectly styled blonde hair reflecting the studio lights, and her manicured fingers already pointing accusingly before she'd even opened her mouth. Jennifer represented everything that's wrong with entitled customer culture in America. She'd bulldozed through countless confrontations using the same nuclear strategy that had never failed her before. Raise your voice louder than everyone else. Demand to speak to whoever's in charge, and threaten consequences until people cave to your demands just to make you go away. But what Jennifer Walsh didn't know, what the producers had deliberately hidden from her, and what would make her complete destruction so absolutely devastating, was that Judge Judy had been personally tracking entitled behavior cases for months, specifically to make an example that would go down in television history. The 81-year-old judicial legend had grown tired of watching Karens terrorize service workers across America, and she'd been waiting for the perfect case to deliver a message so brutal and so final that it would serve as a warning to every entitled person who thinks they can disrespect authority without consequences. This wasn't going to be just another small claims dispute about a property line or a neighbor's fence. This was Judge Judy's calculated plan to end the Karen epidemic once and for all, and Jennifer Walsh was about to become the unwitting sacrifice in a courtroom massacre that would redefine what it means to show respect. The cameras were rolling, 30 million viewers were watching live, and Judge Judy was about to unleash 27 years of pent-up fury at entitled behavior, in a way that would make her previous courtroom shutdowns look like gentle suggestions. Jennifer Walsh thought she was there to win a simple case against her neighbor, but she was actually walking into a judicial execution chamber where her attitude, her entitlement, and her complete lack of respect would be systematically destroyed by the one person in America who absolutely refuses to tolerate disrespect. What she said next would trigger an avalanche of consequences that would follow her for the rest of her life. And Judge Judy's response would become the most quoted comeback in television history. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation that's breaking the internet right now, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of these jaw-dropping courtroom moments. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when America's toughest judge stops playing games and decides to end entitled behavior forever. Judge Judy Scheindlin represents everything entitled people fear most, an unstoppable force of judicial authority who absolutely cannot be intimidated, manipulated, or silenced by any Karen tactic ever invented. At 81 years old, this Brooklyn-born legal powerhouse has built her legendary reputation on one simple, non-negotiable principle that has never failed her in 3 decades of courtroom warfare. Respect the court or face consequences so severe they'll haunt you for the rest of your natural life. What makes Judge Judy particularly terrifying to entitled litigants isn't just her razor-sharp legal mind or her decades of experience dismantling weak arguments. It's her supernatural ability to see through every lie, excuse, and manipulation attempt within the first 10 seconds of someone opening their mouth. Born Judith Susan Blum in Brooklyn, New York, Judge Judy didn't climb to the top of America's legal entertainment empire by accident or luck. She earned every ounce of her fearsome reputation through 15 brutal years as a family court judge in Manhattan, where she dealt with the worst of human behavior on a daily basis. Deadbeat parents, lying spouses, abusive partners, and entitled individuals who thought the law didn't apply to them. During those grueling years in real courtrooms with real consequences, she developed what legal experts now call surgical precision with words and the deadly ability to identify exactly what will destroy someone's argument and deliver that destruction with the efficiency of a master surgeon removing a tumor. When she transitioned to television in 1996, she brought all of that real-world judicial experience with her, creating a courtroom show unlike anything America had ever seen before. For 27 years, Judge Judy has been systematically destroying entitled litigants with a track record so devastating that legal scholars study her cases as masterclasses in judicial authority. She's the judge who made a grown man cry by exposing his lies about a car accident in under 3 minutes. She's the authority figure who demolished a lying tenant so thoroughly that the woman tried to flee the courtroom mid-hearing. She's the judicial legend who once told a disrespectful defendant, "Beauty fades, dumb is forever," creating a catchphrase that's been quoted millions of times across social media. Her signature approach has remained unchanged for nearly 3 decades. Cut through nonsense with brutal honesty, expose lies with laser-focused questioning, and deliver justice with the kind of moral clarity that makes guilty parties crumble under the weight of their own shame. What makes Judge Judy particularly dangerous to Karen-type personalities is her complete immunity to the standard entitled person playbook. You can't demand to speak to her manager because she is the manager. You can't threaten to write bad reviews because 30 million people watch her show daily and worship her every decision. You can't try to intimidate her with loud voices and aggressive behavior because she's faced down hardened criminals, abusive spouses, and corrupt lawyers in real courtrooms where people's lives hung in the balance. Judge Judy has seen every type of disrespectful, entitled, manipulative person that exists, and she's developed specific countermeasures for each category of bad behavior that are so effective they've never failed her once in over 2 decades of television. Her reputation among legal professionals is nothing short of legendary. Fellow judges describe her as absolutely unflappable under pressure, and laser-focused on justice and respect above all else. Court officers who worked with her during her family court days say she could silence an entire courtroom of angry litigants with a single look. Television producers who've worked on her show for years report that she prepares for every case like it's a Supreme Court hearing, studying every detail until she knows more about the facts than the people who live them. This isn't someone you can steamroll with entitled behavior, Karen tactics, or any other form of disrespectful conduct. This is a judicial force of nature who has spent her entire career waiting for the perfect moment to teach America's entitled population a lesson they'll never forget. And Jennifer Walsh was about to become that lesson. Meet Jennifer Walsh, the 42-year-old suburban queen from Greenwich, Connecticut, who embodies every single Karen stereotype that has ever terrorized service workers across America, but with one crucial difference that would make her destruction even more spectacular. She genuinely believed she was untouchable. This wasn't just another entitled soccer mom throwing tantrums at Target or demanding free meals at Applebee's. Jennifer Walsh was the final boss of Karen behavior, a woman who had transformed entitled complaining into an art form, so refined and so devastatingly effective that she hadn't lost a single confrontation in over 15 years of professional victimhood. Her perfectly manicured nails had pointed at more managers than a GPS system. Her expertly highlighted blonde hair had demanded more supervisors than a corporate audit, and her designer purse had contained more complaint forms than a customer service department's filing cabinet. Jennifer's rise to Karen supremacy began innocently enough in the affluent suburbs of Connecticut, where her husband's successful hedge fund career provided her with the financial cushion and social status necessary to perfect her entitled behavior without facing real consequences. What started as occasional complaints about cold coffee gradually evolved into a sophisticated system of manipulation that allowed her to control every interaction through sheer force of privileged outrage. She discovered early in her Karen career that most people, especially service workers and middle management, would rather give her whatever she wanted than deal with the nuclear-level tantrum she was capable of unleashing. This realization transformed her from an occasional complainer into a professional victim who used her entitlement like a weapon of mass destruction against anyone who dared to tell her. Her track record of successful Karen victories read like a greatest hits album of entitled behavior. She'd gotten entire restaurant meals comp by claiming her medium-rare steak was overcooked, even though security footage later showed her eating 70% of it before complaining. She'd forced a Target manager to honor a clearly expired coupon by threatening to post negative reviews on 17 different platforms while live-streaming the entire confrontation on Facebook. She'd gotten her son's failing grade changed to a B+ by attending 3 different school board meetings and threatening to sue for emotional distress. She'd even managed to get her HOA fees reduced by claiming the community pool's chlorine levels were giving her imaginary migraines, despite never actually using the pool once in 5 years of membership. Jennifer's usual tactics followed a precise playbook that had never failed her in over 2 decades of entitled warfare. Step 1. Enter any establishment with the confidence of someone who owns the place and everyone in it works for her personal satisfaction. Step 2. Identify the smallest possible flaw or inconvenience and magnify it into a catastrophic injustice that requires immediate compensation. Step 3. Raise her voice progressively louder until she becomes the center of attention and other customers start staring uncomfortably. Step 4. Demand to speak to the manager while simultaneously threatening negative reviews, corporate complaints, and potential lawsuits. Step 5. Escalate the situation until the overwhelmed staff members cave to her demands just to make her stop causing a scene. This formula had worked flawlessly for her at restaurants, retail stores, banks, schools, medical offices, and even government buildings where she'd successfully intimidated municipal employees into giving her special treatment. But Jennifer Walsh had a fatal flaw that would prove to be her ultimate downfall in Judge Judy's courtroom. She fundamentally confused customer service interactions with legal proceedings, and had no understanding that judicial authority operates by completely different rules than retail management. In her privileged suburban bubble, Jennifer had never encountered an authority figure who couldn't be intimidated, manipulated, or worn down through persistent entitled behavior. Every manager she'd ever faced had been employees who could be fired. Every supervisor she'd ever confronted had been worried about customer complaints affecting their performance reviews, and every authority figure she'd ever challenged had been someone with something to lose if she escalated. Her tantrum high enough up the corporate chain, her preparation for the Judge Judy hearing revealed everything wrong with her approach to conflict resolution. Instead of researching property law, studying legal precedents, or preparing actual evidence to support her case against her neighbor, Jennifer had spent her time planning her outfit, practicing her victim voice, and researching Judge Judy's personal background to find potential pressure points she could exploit during the hearing. She'd watched exactly 3 clips of the show on YouTube, all of which happened to be cases where Judge Judy had ruled in favor of suburban mothers, leading Jennifer to the catastrophically wrong conclusion that she could manipulate the legendary judge through shared demographic identity and maternal solidarity. She'd even prepared what she called her nuclear option, a threat to expose Judge Judy's bias against successful women on social media if the ruling didn't go her way. Jennifer Walsh walked into that Studio City courtroom carrying nothing but her entitled attitude, her practiced victim persona, and her complete confidence that Judge Judy would be just another authority figure she could bulldoze into submission through sheer force of privileged outrage. She was about to learn that Judge Judy's courtroom operates by different rules than every other environment she'd ever conquered, and that judicial authority cannot be intimidated, manipulated, or worn down by Karen tactics that work everywhere else in America. What Jennifer didn't realize was that she was essentially bringing a participation trophy to a championship fight, walking into a battle of wits completely unarmed, and challenging the one person in America who had spent her entire career developing immunity to exactly the type of entitled behavior that Jennifer had perfected. The stage was set for an epic collision between unstoppable entitlement and immovable judicial authority, and only one of them would walk away with their reputation intact. Jennifer Walsh was about to discover that there are some authority figures in America who cannot be intimidated, and Judge Judy was about to remind the entire nation why respect for the law is not negotiable. Regardless of how much money you have or how many managers you've successfully bullied in the past, the case that would destroy Jennifer Walsh's entire worldview seemed deceptively simple on paper. A property line dispute with her neighbor over 18 inches of supposedly stolen land that she claimed was ruining her perfectly manicured suburban paradise. But what started as a routine small claims hearing quickly transformed into the most explosive courtroom confrontation in television history the moment Jennifer opened her mouth and revealed the full extent of her entitled delusions. From her very first sentence, it became crystal clear that she hadn't come to Judge Judy's courtroom to present legal arguments or seek actual justice. She'd come to stage a performance where she expected the legendary judge to bow to her demands, just like every other authority figure she'd successfully bullied into submission over the past 2 decades. Judge Judy began the hearing with her standard professional approach, giving Jennifer every opportunity to present her case with dignity and respect. "Ms. Walsh, please tell me about your property dispute with your neighbor," she said in her characteristic no-nonsense tone, expecting the basic courtesy that every other litigant had shown her in 27 years of television. But instead of a respectful response, Jennifer launched into what could only be described as a customer service complaint, disguised as a legal argument. "Well, Judge Judy, I'm absolutely appalled by what this man has done to my property," she began, her voice already carrying that familiar Karen pitch that had terrorized retail workers across Connecticut. "I've been trying to explain to him for months that he cannot just move his fence wherever he wants. But he refuses to listen to reason, and frankly, I'm tired of dealing with incompetent people who don't understand basic property rights." The first red flag appeared when Judge Judy attempted to ask a clarifying question about the property survey, only to have Jennifer wave her hand dismissively and continue her rant without pause. "Ma'am, let me finish," Judge Judy interrupted, her voice carrying the first hint of warning that experienced courtroom observers immediately recognized as the calm before the storm. But Jennifer, operating on pure entitled autopilot, completely missed the danger signals and actually rolled her eyes while letting out an exaggerated sigh that echoed through the silent courtroom. The studio audience exchanged shocked glances, understanding that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Someone was actually showing open disrespect to Judge Judy and somehow didn't realize they were signing their own judicial death warrant. As the hearing progressed, Jennifer's behavior escalated from merely disrespectful to absolutely outrageous. She interrupted Judge Judy's questions 3 more times, made dismissive hand gestures whenever the judge tried to explain legal procedures, and even had the audacity to check her phone while Judge Judy was speaking directly to her. When the judge asked for evidence of the property survey, Jennifer responded with, "Oh, I don't have time for all that paperwork nonsense. Anyone with common sense can see that my neighbor is obviously in the wrong here." The courtroom's energy shifted dramatically as Judge Judy's voice took on a sharper edge that had preceded some of her most legendary destructions. "Ms. Walsh, this is a legal proceeding, not a customer service complaint. I need evidence, not opinions." But Jennifer Walsh, drunk on 2 decades of successful Karen victories, made the mistake that would trigger her complete annihilation. Looking directly at Judge Judy with the kind of condescending smirk that had intimidated countless retail managers, she delivered the line that would seal her fate. "Oh, come on. You don't understand how the real world works. In the real world, when someone is obviously wrong, you don't need a bunch of fancy paperwork to prove it. You just use common sense, which apparently isn't very common anymore." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by several audible gasps from the studio audience who understood they had just witnessed someone commit judicial suicide on live television. Judge Judy's final warning came in a voice so quiet and controlled that it was somehow more terrifying than if she had started shouting. "Ms. Walsh, I'm going to give you one last opportunity to show this court the respect it deserves. Do you understand where you are right now?" But Jennifer, completely oblivious to the volcanic eruption she was about to trigger, made the ultimate mistake that would immortalize her stupidity forever. With the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences for her entitled behavior, she looked America's most feared judge directly in the eyes and delivered the words that would trigger the most savage judicial destruction ever caught on camera. What happened next became the most replayed moment in courtroom television history. Jennifer Walsh, completely drunk on her own entitlement and oblivious to the judicial volcano she was about to trigger, looked directly at Judge Judy and delivered the words that would end her reputation forever. "Would you just shut up, old lady, and listen to me for once? I'm trying to explain something important here, and you keep interrupting with all this legal nonsense that doesn't matter." The courtroom's collective gasp was so loud it registered on the studio's audio equipment, followed by a silence so complete you could hear the camera operators breathing. Judge Judy's pause lasted exactly 7 seconds, but it felt like 7 hours of pure terror as the legendary judge leaned forward, her eyes never leaving Jennifer's face, processing the fact that someone had just committed the ultimate act of courtroom disrespect on live television. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, controlled, and absolutely lethal. "Did you just tell me to shut up in my own courtroom?" The words hung in the air like a death sentence as Jennifer's face went from smug confidence to dawning horror, finally realizing she had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. What followed was 27 years of judicial fury unleashed in the most devastating verbal destruction ever witnessed on television. In 30 years of practicing law, I have never encountered someone so fundamentally disrespectful, so completely clueless about basic human decency, and so utterly unprepared for the consequences of their actions. Judge Judy began, her voice growing stronger with each word. "You walk into my courtroom, disrespect my authority, interrupt my questions, and then have the unmitigated audacity to tell me to shut up? Your case is dismissed, your behavior is disgraceful, and you need to exit my courtroom immediately before I hold you in contempt and have security escort you out in handcuffs." The studio audience erupted in spontaneous applause as Jennifer stood frozen, her mouth hanging open, unable to process the complete annihilation of everything she thought she knew about getting her way through entitled behavior. If you're loving this complete destruction of entitled behavior, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what you think Judge Judy should have said to this Karen. Within 3 hours of Jennifer Walsh's humiliating courtroom execution, the clip exploded across every social media platform with the force of a digital nuclear bomb. The hashtag #ShutUpOldLady became the #1 trending topic worldwide, generating over 15 million interactions in the first 24 hours alone. The original clip on Judge Judy's official YouTube channel racked up 12 million views before midnight, while unauthorized copies across TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram collectively reached over 50 million people before the sun set on Jennifer's reputation. America's reaction was swift, brutal, and absolutely unanimous in supporting Judge Judy's legendary destruction of entitled behavior. Legal experts praise the moment as a masterclass in judicial authority, with Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz calling it the most appropriate response to courtroom disrespect in television history. Social media exploded with memes featuring Jennifer's shocked face captioned with phrases like, "When customer service rules don't apply in court," and the moment Karen realized she wasn't in target anymore. Jennifer's pathetic attempt at damage control through a Facebook video defending her behavior backfired spectacularly, generating even more mockery and cementing her status as the most hated person on the internet. The cultural impact extended far beyond internet entertainment, sparking a nationwide conversation about respect, entitlement, and authority that dominated news cycles for weeks. Other entitled litigants scheduled to appear on courtroom shows across America suddenly began withdrawing their cases, terrified of becoming the next viral victim of judicial justice. Law schools started using the clip as required viewing in their courses on courtroom etiquette, while customer service training programs incorporated Jennifer's destruction as an example of what happens when entitled behavior meets real authority. Jennifer Walsh had achieved immortality, but not the kind she'd ever wanted. She became the eternal symbol of what happens when entitled behavior finally meets its match in America's justice system. Judge Judy's devastating response to Jennifer Walsh became more than just a viral moment. It became a masterclass in judicial authority that will be studied and celebrated for generations to come. In those 60 seconds of controlled fury, the 81-year-old legal legend didn't just destroy one entitled woman's inflated ego. She delivered a message to every Karen, every entitled customer, and every disrespectful person in America that there are still places where respect is not optional, where authority cannot be intimidated, and where consequences are real and permanent. Jennifer Walsh learned the hardest lesson of her privileged life. Courtrooms are not customer service counters, judges are not retail managers, and entitled behavior that works everywhere else in America becomes a one-way ticket to public humiliation when you disrespect the wrong authority figure. The phrase, "shut up, old lady," will follow Jennifer Walsh for the rest of her natural life, becoming her unwanted legacy and serving as a permanent reminder of what happens when entitlement meets its match. Her name became synonymous with courtroom stupidity. Her face became the universal symbol of Karen behavior gone wrong, and her destruction became the gold standard for judicial shutdowns that future generations will struggle to match. But more importantly, her humiliation served as a warning to millions of other entitled people who watched her complete annihilation and realized that their intimidation tactics have limits. Their demands have boundaries, and their disrespectful behavior has consequences that they might not be prepared to face. Judge Judy's already legendary status reached new heights after her savage destruction of entitled behavior, cementing her position as America's most beloved television judge and the ultimate defender of respect and common decency. The incident proved that even after 27 years of courtroom television, she could still deliver moments of pure judicial brilliance that remind everyone why she became a cultural icon in the first place. Her unwavering commitment to respect, her refusal to tolerate disrespectful behavior, and her ability to destroy entitled attitudes with surgical precision made her more popular than ever with audiences who were tired of watching Karens terrorize service workers without consequences. This wasn't just courtroom drama captured on television. It was a powerful reminder that respect still matters in America, that authority still means something in our society, and that entitled behavior will eventually meet its match when it encounters people who refuse to be intimidated or manipulated. Jennifer Walsh's destruction became a symbol of justice triumphing over entitlement, of respect defeating disrespect, and of consequences finally catching up with someone who thought she was untouchable. In a world where entitled behavior seems to be rewarded everywhere else, Judge Judy's courtroom remains the one place where respect is still required, authority is still respected, and justice still prevails over privilege. If you found Judge Judy's savage shutdown as incredible as we did, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more moments when justice puts entitled behavior in its place. Drop a comment below and let us know, what's the most entitled behavior you've ever witnessed? And who do you think will be the next Karen to learn that disrespecting a judge never ends well?